are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, man? How was your
Good.
how was your day today?
It was good. It was really
Yeah,
good.
nice.
Yeah, I was I spent the day driving around Florida.
I got the day off of school today because we're all doing our independent research today for our iSearch assignment. So that was fun.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So Seco Middle School, where is that?
It's in Saco, Maine. It's a pretty southern town in Maine.
Hmm.
It's in like York County. It's near like the New Hampshire and near the New Hampshire border with Maine.
I've been as far as New York driving a truck, but not
Wow.
not quite not quite to Boston. So
Yeah, because currently you're a regional truck driver, right?
yeah,
So
currently.
where do
Well,
you?
actually, I was a regional, and then I just moved to local. I'm down in Florida doing local runs only in Florida. I was regional until um last. I was regional until about 2 3 weeks or 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So would you say you like regional or local better?
I prefer local just because local truck driving allows you. Well, there's advantages to both of them. Number one,
Yeah,
local. If you're going to go local, you're going to be able to have the advantage of being home each night, especially if you have friends and family that you want to be with each night. Then you can go home to them. And a great thing about local is that you can do shorter runs. You're not having to sleep at truck stops and things like that. But on
yeah,
the flip side, regional is nice because you actually can make a little bit more money because you're out more. You're not having to take the truck home each night, go
yeah,
home and spend that time driving and commuting to your vehicle to get and go on your runs. Regional, you get in the truck on Monday or Sunday night typically, and I'm able to go that whole entire week without having to go back home basically, and I can stay out and do a lot more loads that way.
yeah. So would you say that being away from your family was one of the hardest parts of being a regional truck driver?
I'd say that being away from the family definitely has its challenges. If you're single, not too much of an issue, or
Yeah,
if you're not married yet or whatever. But if you have commitments to family, I would say it's definitely a challenge. You need to be prepared for that type of lifestyle if that's something that you choose to do. It's something that it has its, like I said, it has its challenges, but many truck drivers out there do end up doing regional and they end up making it work out. So it does have its challenges for sure. But it's nice to be able to come home on the weekends as well, and after missing your family all week.
yeah. So that kind of why did you become a truck driver?
Why did I become a truck driver? Well, I became a truck driver because I had actually a career path to be a mortician.
Ah,
And I was going to work at a funeral home, being a licensed embalmer, and be able to work with families. But I decided to be a truck driver for a couple of reasons. Number one, it was much more affordable. Being a
mhm.
truck driver, the entry level aspect of it is a much more affordable in relation to financially. It's a it's something that you can make and earn really good money and not have to spend a lot of money starting up. To go to CDL school to get your license is fairly affordable
Yeah,
compared to other types of colleges and degrees. And in my opinion, you can make pretty good money and a pretty good living doing it that way. So, as far as wanting to be a truck driver, my granddad was a truck driver for many years,
yeah,
and he went over the road. And I enjoy being out on the open road. The main thing that I enjoy so much is just being able to have that freedom. There's a lot of guys that go to like factory work and they sit in their cubicle at an office and things like that, and they're
yeah.
bound to that building. But as a truck driver, you have that freedom to be able to drive across the country and see the sights and be able to see a lot of people and meet a lot of people. So it's definitely got its advantages, and that's one of the reasons, a couple of the reasons why I wanted to be a truck driver.
Gotcha. So yeah, do you ever get bored when you're truck driving?
Do I ever get bored? Yes, I do sometimes. What I usually do is I'll have either a podcast going on, I'll read my Bible, or
Yeah,
I'll listen to some music. things like that. But yes, sometimes when you're on an open road and there's nothing going on, like especially in states like Montana, Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, those states
Yeah.
have a whole lot of nothing. And so when you're driving through, you don't really have a lot to do other than maybe call a friend, call your spouse, or listen to music, things like that. But also too, you can find ways not to be bored, and those are
Yeah.
some of the things. But in generally speaking, it's more exciting in the over. I guess I want to say it's more exciting to be able to get behind the wheel than it is finding spots where I'm getting bored. So it has its moments, but for the most part, it's not really that boring because you're behind the wheel of this truck and you got a lot of responsibilities. You can be driving up to 80,000 pounds
Yeah.
gross weight, and you really don't have a lot of time to be bored. But once you get comfortable with the truck and you get comfortable with where you're going, you do get a little relaxed and it can get boring.
Gotcha. So how long have you been truck driving for?
So I've been truck driving since professionally since 2015. So I
Wow.
owned my own business for a very short time when I lived in Georgia, and I would basically take a truck from Atlanta to Birmingham, Alabama, and back to Atlanta each night. And that did not require to have a CDL. I ended up getting my commercial driver's license in 2016. So as far as having a CDL and driving a big rig, it's been since January 2016. So it's I guess, about 7 years now.
Wow. Been truck driving for a long time.
Yep.
What would you what advice would you give to somebody, since you've been truck driving for so long? What advice would you give to somebody who is just starting out?
The biggest advice that I could give someone, and of course, I don't have all the answers,
Yeah.
but I would say one of the biggest pieces of advice I would say is start getting the experience. That's the most important part. Experience is the most important thing. When new students go to school and they learn the ropes, they learn how to drive, they learn how to do all the maneuvers necessary, they learn the laws. Once they get into the truck, right away they're expecting to make a ton of money, and for some
Yeah.
people that may be true. But the most important thing to have a long career in trucking and to be able to have that fulfillment, you need to have experience. And there's a lot of scenarios. Obviously, trucking is very it has its difficulties and it's got its challenges, and there's a lot of risks involved. There's a lot of dangers, and it's very important for new drivers to have that experience under their belt before they try to find the best company out there that's going to pay the best, or it's going to give the best options, because that's what a lot of guys that I've seen, and since I've been driving, they're right out of CDL school, they're ready to start working for a company, and they don't really get the job that they truly want. They're having
Yeah.
to work a lot of hours, they're having to go a lot of miles, and to some that's kind of the downside of getting into trucking. But to be honest with you, that's actually a good thing. I see it as this: learn how to um, get a good skill
Yeah.
and learn how to drive the truck, learn how to be safe, and you earn that experience. And over time, once you get that experience, then other companies will hire you based on your safety rating, your experience, and what you've driven, where you've driven. And so I would say the biggest advice I would have is to get the most experience you can, even if it's not with the company or with the type of job that you want right off the bat.
Yeah. What would you say the pros and cons of truck driving are?
Well, the pros of truck driving, well, there's a lot of pros. So
Yeah.
I would say a couple of key uh, good things about truck driving is, like I said, you're not bound to a 9 to 5 job. I know there's some 9 to 5 trucking jobs out there, but you're not bound to a warehouse, a factory, a big corporate plant where you have to show up to your cubicle every day and see the same things. The having the freedom to be on the road and having the freedom to be able to see the country, as to where you typically wouldn't be able to do that in most other scenarios, due to a lot of financial obligations. But as far as being able to see the open road, being able to have that freedom to drive a big rig down the road, and to be able to keep America running in a sense,
Yeah.
that's definitely a pro. Another pro I would say is financially, it's definitely you're going to make more money than most factories, most entry level jobs out there today. You're going to do pretty well with that. So those are the pros. Now the cons, I would say, obviously, is there's a lot of legal obligations that you have to fulfill. We are required by the F.M.C.S.A, the Federal Motor Safety Carrier Administration. I'm totally messed that up. It's one of those words.
Yeah.
But the federal government basically requires us to meet certain requirements before we can get in the truck and drive. And if we don't meet those requirements, there's a lot of legal issues that we can run into. If the truck is overweight, if certain part of the truck is overweight, then if we go through a weigh station, you've probably seen some of the weigh stations where
Yeah.
trucks go through. When we go through those weigh stations, we have to meet a certain weight. And if we don't meet that weight, as far as being under that gross weight, then we can get fined. We can get points in our license, points against the company that we work for. So there's a lot of responsibility involved with that. Also to safety, a lot of safety issues. Trucks cannot stop. And I wish that a lot of drivers understood that. Trucks cannot stop on a dime. When cars pull out in front of us, it closes that gap of stopping distance substantially. And that's definitely a big risk and a danger involved with trucking. So, as where car drivers, if they get in a car wreck, obviously whoever's at fault will, either get a ticket or they'll get a fine, and they'll have to have their insurance pay for the cost. Now, if a truck driver rear-ends somebody, that can affect our license to be able to get us another job. That can affect our scores on our record for our company hiring us, also for our license, for being able to have insurance cover us. There's a lot of aspects involved. So there's a lot of cons to it. And I would also say another con would be being away from family is another big thing if you're going to go over the road. So those are just a few things.
Yeah. I really like how in your videos, you kind of explain it more in-depthly. It's not, some people might think that it's just, sitting behind a wheel and just driving, but you kind of, explain it more in-depthly and really just like show how it's really like. It's more, your videos are more have a lot more information in them than some other YouTubers, and I really like that. Which kind of brings me to my next question. Why did you start making YouTube videos?
So it's interesting that you asked that. In 2017, I didn't even have a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And I was working for Coca-Cola in Lawrenceville, Georgia. And if you look at my YouTube channel, you can see the first video I have is Coca-Cola driver in Lawrenceville.
Yeah.
So what I did one day was, as I was about to start my route to deliver Coca-Cola products around to the local gas stations and stores, I decided to bring my GoPro camera with me, and that was a Friday. And took my GoPro camera with me and strapped it on and just turned the power on and hit record. And I was just basically, hey, this is what I do for a living. I thought y'all might like to see what I'm doing, and then I went through each store explaining my process of how I, stack the Coca-Cola product in the coolers, things like that. And I thought nothing of it. I was literally just doing something for fun. It was a Friday. I had a pretty easy day that day, so I decided to do that. Well, I brought the camera home, and I literally just put the SD card in, uploaded the footage, pieced it together. No certain plan or reason I was doing anything. I just put it together, put some music to it, and threw it out there. It was literally my first video. And within the first year, I received 1 million views over that video. And
Wow.
For whatever reason, I don't know why. And that's not normal. Most YouTube
Yeah.
channels take a long time to build, to get an audience, to get, subscribers, things like that. But for some reason, I didn't even try it. I ended up getting, this. And as a matter of fact, I posted the video, and like 2 days later, I walk into work, and some of my coworkers are saying, "Hey, you're a YouTuber. I saw you on YouTube." And I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? And so I got contacted from the corporate office, and they said, "Hey, we like your video, and we want you to do another one." So I ended up making another video, a couple other videos. So it was a lot of fun. But as far as the YouTube channel, I really absolutely had no plan. I wasn't even intending on it to
Yeah.
take off like that, but it did. So just wanted to do it for fun.
Yeah. That's yeah, it's pretty cool that, your first video is instant, it just blew up,
Mhm.
What does your average day look like?
Okay, so my average day today. So right now I'm local. I
Yeah.
basically that means that I hop in my personal truck, I go to my big rig, and I drive it during the day to deliver loads, and I park the truck, and I pick up my personal truck and come back home every night. That's how it is. An average day for me. Um, I live in Florida, so
Yeah.
traffic isn't quite as bad as some other areas. I used to live in Atlanta, and so traffic was really bad up there. But a typical day is I wake up, I get ready around 5-ish in the morning, and I hop in my personal vehicle, go to my truck. I do a pre-trip inspection. I make sure that the truck is safe to drive. I make sure there's no defects on it. Make sure the lights are working, the blinkers are working, the tires are
Yeah.
inflated, things like that. I make sure that there's no air in the air, or there's no cuts in the airlines. Make sure all the brakes are working right. And what I'll do is I'll get a load from dispatch. Dispatch will contact me. They'll either text me, or they'll send me, they'll call me, or they'll send me an email letting me know, hey, this is where your load's going to be picked up. You'll go pick up here at this location, and you will deliver it at this location. And the distance could be 15 minutes. The distance could be 3 hours. Just depends on where the pickup location is and where the delivery location is.
Yeah.
And what I'll do is I'll go pick up the load, and once I got it in, loaded up, I'll make sure that I'm underweight so that I don't get fined or anything like that. I don't get any DOT officers pulling me over for overweight issues. And I make sure to navigate through traffic, get to my next stop, and I will unload that load. Dispatch typically will have me another load ready and prepared for me, so that once I'm finished unloading, I can go ahead and get another load, and I'll go ahead and drive to that location. At the end of the day, which is typically around 14 hours, 12 to 14 hours on longer days, 8 to 10 hours on shorter days, I'll drive back to the yard where I keep the truck after everything's after the product's delivered, and I'll bring it back to the yard. I'll make sure to do a post-trip inspection, make sure everything on the truck looks good, and pack up and go home and start the day over the next day.
So you have a lot of responsibilities. So you've been, quite a few different types of truck drivers, intermodal, flatbed, regional, local. Which one would you say has been your favorite and your least favorite?
My least favorite, I would have to say, is flatbed. Each one has their pros and cons.
Yeah.
But I would say flatbed was my least favorite, mainly because it takes more time to strap loads. There's a lot more risk involved with loads that are not covered. You have the issue of rain. If the load is, wood, and it's not pressurized wood, and it has to be delivered dry, you have to put a canopy over, or you have to cover it with a tarp. And that can be very time consuming. If it's a load that, like I used to deliver pallets. Pallets are, they're not very secure. You have to secure them very well. And the only problem with that is you have to make sure not to break them either with the strap, because they're not exactly the strongest wood in the world. So that can cause some issues. So flatbed, I would have to say would be, I like the work involved with it, because I'm out of the truck. I'm able to work and move around, as opposed to being in the truck all day and not being able to have any activity. That's a good thing about it. But the least favorite is I would definitely have to say flatbed, because of those reasons. You have to get out in the rain, unstrap the load, and the load may tilt or sway or shift, and you have to correct that. I've had to correct it many times. So flatbed's my least favorite. my most favorite, I would have to say, was intermodal, and the reason why is because intermodal is pretty quick, cut and dry. I mean, it's very easy to do. I would go into the port of Huntsville where I used to work, and I would go find a particular trailer that already has a load on it. The door is sealed from being shipped overseas to the U.S. I just have to
Yeah.
find the trailer. It's already full. I just literally hook up to it, check, make sure the trailer is in good condition, and check it out at the guard shack and deliver the load. Once it's delivered, I bring the container back. I bring it into the yard, drop the container, because the container actually doesn't belong to the truckers. Container
Yeah.
actually belongs to the container yard. So
Yeah.
we literally are pretty much hands off. We don't touch the trailer. We're not responsible for trailer issues like tire blowouts, things like that. So as far as my favorite, I would have to say intermodal for those reasons. It was just much more easy to deliver those loads, and vice versa, to get an empty container, take it, get it loaded, bring it back to the yard so they could ship it off to another country. I would say was definitely definitely the favorite of all of them for sure.
Yeah. So do you prefer when it takes longer to kind of load up the trailer? Because I know it can take, upwards of like 5 hours for the people to load the trailer. Do you like the kind of the break, or would you rather just, start driving and get the delivery done as quickly as possible?
So that would depend. Now, if I'm delivering product and I'm getting paid percentage wise based on each load, so right
Yeah.
now I get paid percentage for every load. If I had it my way, I would get through the loads quickly, as quick as I can, because the more loads I do that day, the more money I make.
Yeah.
Now, if it's hourly pay or they're paying me detention to stay there for a long period of time to get loaded, in that case, it doesn't really bother me. Now, as far as regional routes, like if I was running regional, if I was running, 8 to 10 hours one day and I
Yeah.
finally got to my stop, then that 30 minutes or 2 hours or however long it takes would actually be a really good break for sure. Um, there's been times where I definitely appreciated having that time to load or unload, whatever it is, because I was up very early at 2 a.m. I had to travel, really, really fast, 6 hours to get to my next destination, to be there on time because there are deadlines to meet. And by the time I got there, I was kind of tired. I was ready to take a break and didn't really have the chance to take a break because I had a deadline to meet. So I had to
Yeah.
really book it to get there. And once I got there and they started unloading me or loading me, whatever it was, yes, those times to sit while they're doing that was definitely an advantage. So,
Okay.
but like
Yeah.
I said, it depends.
Gotcha. Yeah. If when they're loading it, you have time to, eat food and take a break and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, and it was the best times ever, especially if I had something yummy in the meal or
Yeah.
in the warmer, and I have that chance to sit down and take a break and eat some yummy food while they're loading. That's the best thing ever. Being able to eat while somebody else is working.
Yeah. What would you say your worst experience has been while truck driving?
My worst experience, I was
Yeah.
in Minnesota one day, and I was driving for Coca-Cola, and I was coming out of Rochester going west toward Owatonna, Minnesota. It's in the southern part of the state.
Yeah.
And I had just delivered a bulk load of Coca-Cola product to a Target over there, a Target superstore. And
Yeah.
if you don't, if you're not familiar with trucks when they're loaded are much easier and better to maneuver and control than if they're unloaded. And I'll explain why. Trucks that are loaded have more pressure and more weight on the ground. And
Yeah.
so when you have that pressure and weight on the ground, when you're braking, you have that better maneuverability to stop or turn, things like that. Because when the truck is lighter, the wheels are actually, they're not pressed into the ground quite as well. And that can cause a problem during the rain or during the snow or ice. And that's exactly what happened. When I left Target, this was in 2016. So it was not too far or not too long after I got my license.
Yeah.
And so I was still kind of new. I had left Target in Rochester, and I was driving down the highway going back toward Owatonna, and I was unloaded. So it was very lightweight. Gross weight on some of those trucks and trailers gross are around 32,000 pounds, give or take.
Yeah.
Um, and it was snowing and icing. And of course, they keep the roads pretty well maintained, but there was this one patch that I came to that was covered in ice and snow. And as long as you hit it, and you stay, you keep your wheel straight, it was not going to be an issue. But that day it was particularly very windy. And in the southern part of Minnesota, there's a lot of crops out there and a lot of hard wind, a lot of gusty wind out there. They have wind turbines for that very reason.
Yeah.
So that day I was headed down west and I hit that patch of ice, and a gust of wind had hit the front part of the bulkhead of my trailer, which is the frontmost part of the trailer. And when that happened, the trailer actually pushed to the left, and my truck which caused the truck to push to the right. So as I'm driving and that gust of wind hit, the steering wheel went to the right on its own, and I almost lost control. And I would have to say that I needed a new pair of britches after that.
Yeah,
because it was quite the experience, and it was definitely a scary one. So that would probably have to be the worst time.
Yeah, because since because trucks are so much bigger than cars, it takes a lot more responsibility. And you need a lot of training, and you need to make sure that you know how to drive those, because a lot of people don't realize how different trucks are than cars, and how it's harder to drive them and stuff.
Absolutely, that's right.
Well, thank you so much for I think I'm out of questions. Thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to do this interview with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, Ben. It was a pleasure, and I appreciate you reaching out to me to do this interview. I really enjoyed it, and like I said, hopefully, I answered all your questions that you had, and they all made sense.